Braden Schwark, and I'm one of the business advisory managers here at William Buck and the chair of the Generation Next Committee. On behalf of William Buck, it is my pleasure to welcome you all here tonight. We were disappointed last year we couldn't hold any face-to-face events, but we were happy to keep connected via our webinars. Just some quick housekeeping before we start. Please ensure your phones are on silent, and if you need to use the bathroom, they're just past reception there on the left-hand side. There are signs up. So before I introduce tonight's facilitator, I'll take a minute to introduce our firm and this event. William Buck is the largest locally owned and operated accounting and financial planning practice in Adelaide with 21 partners and over 170 staff. We are part of the William Buck network across Australia and New Zealand and part of the Practice Alliance worldwide. We're a multidisciplinary firm with services across business advisory, corporate advisory, super, audit, tax and wealth advisory, with a financing broking division startup recently as well. Our brand message, Changing Lives, is founded on the belief that we are more than just advisors. We aspire to create positive change in the lives of our clients and our people. For first-time attendees, Generation Next is celebrating its 10th birthday, with our committee being established way back in 2011. We are delighted with the following that we've built over this time for the next generation of corporate Adelaide, and we hope to take the opportunity tonight to build your network at these events. The purpose of Generation Next is to promote South Australia's future leaders and local businesses. These events are aimed to provide a friendly environment for young professionals and business people to meet, share their ideas and promote their business. I would really encourage you all to get around and meet as many new people tonight. So tonight's topic, navigating your career through change, is an extremely relevant discussion point, as no year of our lives has seen such significant change. The last time we had a face-to-face event here at William Buck, Corona was just the name of a terrible tasting beer. How 2020 has changed us all. A big thank you to our sponsor Andrew Beveridge of ASB Photography, who has generously offered 20% off corporate headshots tonight to those attending. I'll now hand it over to Tom Laundy, one of the directors in our business advisory division and the head of people and culture here at William Buck, who will facilitate the panel this evening. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Braden, and I'd like to echo Braden's comments and welcome you all here tonight. Great to see lots of people that we just don't see every day. There hasn't been as many events as Braden said, so terrific to welcome you all back, and some of you have been to these events previously, so terrific to see so many new faces here tonight. So I've got a pretty easy job tonight. I'm facilitating a discussion with three much smarter people than I, who I'll introduce shortly. This is a great topic, I think, navigating careers through change. I mean, the pace of change in the last 12 months has been astronomical, and a lot of things that we thought might have taken us a long time to get to have been on our doorstep before we've known it. So it's been a great time to be in business. I say to people that the times that people remember, you know, you've worked through these times. You know, you can say you've worked through a GFC, you've now worked through a pandemic, and you've seen how these things would have impacted your organisation. These things add to your knowledge base. They add to your ability to be able to relate to other people. So they're good things to keep in mind throughout your career, no matter where it goes. So I'll just give a brief intro, and I apologise for reading here for our three star guests tonight. First of all, Jamie Getgood. Jamie's the CEO and director of Getgood Consulting, an award-winning senior HR leader with a proven track record of achievement across generalist and specialist HR roles in a number of large multinationals. Anyone who knows Jamie knows that he was a wizard around the GM Holden time and actually took out a pretty significant award as the Australian Leader Manager of the Year, and was also a finalist at the RE HR Director of the Year Awards in 2017. So a great resume there. Similar to Sue Newberry on my far left. Sue's a director of Newberry Patterson, a certified practitioner of RE, and is also on the Australian board of NLP, Neuro-Linguistic Programming, and has a number of different qualifications in the area, and is also an award winner. She has demonstrated executive presence and credibility with senior leadership, and has a strong record for collaborating and influencing leaders and other stakeholders to develop organisational capability and drive behavioural change. Sue and I were talking earlier about the sort of work that her business and her colleagues have been doing in the last 12 months. Change management and organisational change has been a huge part of that, so she'll be a source of knowledge here for you guys tonight. On my left is the lovely Meghan Matthews, my people and culture manager, and one of the key people and culture manager in the firm. Her door is a bit like a revolving door of things where people come in and treat her as the first port of call. And I think that's testament to the impact that she has on all of our people here at William Buck. She's had over 20 years, it says here, Meghan, is that right?
Yeah, sadly, yes.
Yeah, sorry about that. 20 years journalist experience in the human resources industry. I can tell you from first-hand experience that she is passionate about people. She's passionate about our people and getting the best out of them, and she's brought actually a quite unique insight since she came across from ASC a few years ago, and we're very happy to have her on board. So welcome to you, Meghan. Now, everyone's had these questions in advance. No one knows which questions I'm going to ask to who, whether I'm even going to ask these questions. So it's a great position to be, and I'll ask Meghan to pass the microphone around. But I guess I'd just like to start by talking a little bit about what's changed. So for the people in the room who are obviously at various different stages of their career, what have been the main things that have changed in the last 12, 18 months, particularly in the pandemic and post that time, that you think if you could put yourself in the shoes of the guys here, what would you say are some of the key lessons to learn from the last little while, and what did you take out of it? We'll perhaps start with you, Sue.
Of course you would.
That's why you should have said that. Is this on? Passed?
No, not you.
Hello?
Can you hear it as it is?
Yeah.
Chloe can hear you, so we're all good.
It's on.
Oh, there we go, it's on.
Okay. Oh, yes, it is. What was the question?
long
Okay. What's impacted? I think the first thing that I'd like to say is that HR is at the table from a strategic point of view now, where previously it was more operational. So I think we're starting to actually get more people focused from organisations. I think one of the things that also has changed is the way that you actually are all standing. Some of you that are actually working quite closely together, you're quite comfortable standing with each other. So the proximatics in terms of the way that we actually use space is very different now in terms of meeting and greeting people. We do this sort of awkward shuffle when we meet somebody for the first time. Do I put my hand out? Do I bump an elbow? Do I nod? Do I put my hands together? And then how close do I get to stand to somebody? So, before it was actually very clear in terms of how we actually engaged with somebody right from the get-go. You put your hand out and you shook hand. So that's really interesting to navigate, I think. And also the way that we actually use space and the way that we actually interact. But you're human beings, we actually want to actually get to know people, and we're getting to know each other quite closely at the moment, aren't we? Not social distancing up here. I think the other conversation is around diversity and inclusion. I think that people in a organisation that actually put that at the front and was actually having conversations about how do we be inclusive in the workplace, how do we actually work really quickly in response to the pandemic and the crisis. They were the ones that actually rebounded really quickly. And I think that actually has more of a focus now for a lot of organisations, is actually how do we actually include everybody in the discussion, is what I'm seeing from the cultural conversation. And the other key thing is that there's real kindness that's actually, other than, toilet paper fiasco, there's real kindness in the conversations people are having, and I think we're actually starting to see that we've missed each other.
Yeah, I agree with that. Sue, I guess a question for you, Jamie, building on what Sue had just said. For the people that are finding their methods of communication to be a bit different, like less opportunistic discussions in the office, a bit more stuff done virtually. Anyone that's worked in an office or in a business for any period of time knows that they need the support of people around them, both above, below, and then contemporaries as well. What are your tips for trying to build rapport when you've got, I guess, limited physical interactions? How do you approach that differently now, perhaps?
Look, I think it comes down to increasing the level of communication for a start.
Yep.
I think one thing the Zoom world has done is it's actually increased the amount of meetings that we have, and I think the reason being is we have to be a lot more flexible because we're all working from home, and to be able to touch base, make sure people are aware of what their obligations are, we have to talk more online.
Yeah.
So there's this digital literacy piece that I think we've all had to learn. That has then meant there's this subtle talk of digital body language that I think we've had to bring into our world, and I think we laughed before about, it's funny when you leave an event like this, people just say goodbye, but when we leave Zoom, we all go, bye! So there's this whole world of communication that's had to increase to try and change that. I mean, face-to-face events haven't been possible. I know if I look at my own self and the various people that I've worked with, I've had to be really deliberate about reaching out, creating connection, using LinkedIn a lot more. I mean, I'm a LinkedIn junkie, and anyone that knows me knows that, and Megan will tell you, but I've had to really increase that because that's become a new forum for communication. So I think we've had to find different ways of communicating because you just can't do the face-to-face. So yeah, there's this digital literacy piece that we've had to do, and we've had to increase the level of communication.
And do you find that the communications that people are having get to the crux or the point of a meeting more quickly rather than, traditionally you might have had a bit of time, or how's the weekend, or, how are you? There doesn't, from my experience in the online meeting forums, that you get down to business fairly quickly and then cut it off when it's done. So it's sort of, to my way of thinking, depersonalises it a little bit. How can you bring that back?
Look, I think it has depersonalised it. Megan and myself were at a conference earlier today, and just being able to do those little, things like handshakes, if you're allowed to do that, because some companies won't. It actually is a human element that we miss, and I think there's this relational piece that we're missing. And I know in my organisation we've been talking a lot about that digital body language again because
I've never heard that before tonight.
Yeah. So think about it. How you communicate via video, it actually makes a difference. And you can, be more expressive with your face. You can actually, do those funny ways. But even when it comes to the email communication that we're doing, if you're talking to someone and saying, "Are you good?" that can be interpreted two different ways. It can be taken in a sarcastic way or genuine way.
Yeah.
So I think it's created a different set of challenges that we hadn't faced before.
Okay. And to you, Megan, talking a little bit about our experience as an organisation here during the pandemic and what we tried to do on the communication front and how that changed. What were some of the main lessons for you?
So for us, it was really important that when we moved really quickly to working from home, that people didn't lose that connection with their peers, with their managers. We were a little bit worried about what would happen if we just sort of sent everybody home and weren't sort of keeping tabs on what would happen. And I think we started at a place of maybe we didn't sort of trust that everything would be okay and that people would be productive, and we really sort of erred on the side of over communicating. And I think in the beginning we weren't all that used to being on Zoom, or we had Skype at the time, and that was awful. That's bad time, you guys. I'm sorry about that. So for a lot of us, that was fairly new, just even communicating in that way. And the funny thing that I found was that in the beginning, in the first few weeks, somebody would send you an email and they'd send you a meeting request for the following day. Can we do a Skype? Because I want to talk to you about this issue. And it was all very polite, and you knew you had to brush your hair that day because you had a call. And then 3 weeks later, it's just random. Somebody just Skypes you, and as they would if they walked into my office, have you got a minute? Yep, that's fine. And I worked out very quickly that I did have to actually, present myself in some kind of reasonable way when a director just messaged me and said, "You look different." So, sorry about that. But the other thing that I actually really enjoyed about our communication was, so we were really proactive about, and for us it was really hard. There were restrictions changing daily. People were scared. People didn't know what was going to happen with their jobs. And so we found that over communicating in that space and just reassuring as often as we could was really important. But the thing that I loved about sort of being home for 3 months is that I met people's pets, I met their children, and so that element of, you know, and this is not for everybody, but that element of sort of people sort of being in your space a little bit actually had a really positive effect for us. That, you know, so I know certainly I sort of know a few people a little bit better based on I had to chat with them and their kids sort of, you know, came in the middle of the meeting, or dog barking or whatever. So that was sort of one of the nice things for me, is that those building genuine connections was a little bit easier as well.
I must say I struggled with that earlier on, feeling a bit like I was intruding in someone else's living room. You know, you call someone out of the blue, and I don't know. Certainly, I felt like that at the beginning. It got a bit better, but yeah, I probably didn't feel comfortable straight away. But yeah, it got a bit better as time gone on. And we do appreciate the effort that you went to, Megan, when we called you a couple of times.
It was very little effort.
That's all right. Only from here up. That's okay. I guess I wonder from perhaps you again, Sue, for people that might be looking at you know, positive examples of organisations in terms of what they might have done during the pandemic to support their people. What do you think people made, or organisations made themselves a bit of a name during that period? Were there some that went the other way? I mean, what was your view of that?
I think there was a mixed bag.
Mixed
really.
bag? Yeah.
Yeah. Some people did it really well, and others were using it to check on people, and so didn't have the trust.
Yeah.
Classic example of using the space really well and connecting. My husband works for Telstra. Don't throw stuff at me. And one of the suppliers actually sent him half a lobster with ingredients, instructions, and then they did a cook fest and connected over the kitchen. I got to eat it, it was great. So, you know, I think what happened is that people were starting to really do innovative thinking, and how can we actually connect in a different way? You know, friends were connecting, family were connecting over online. You know, my family, I've got 4 children, and they all live in different states, and we were playing games, board games online. So I think, you know, if you put a roadblock in front of you, you can go, okay, there's a roadblock in front of me, or you can go, okay, how do we actually work around this and be creative and innovative? So I think, in the most part, if you trust the people, they come up with some really good solutions to connect.
Yeah. So trying to just put your faith in people a bit more and make it really obvious that you're trusting people is a huge positive.
And the other thing I would like to say is that people made it fun as well.
Yeah.
And I think that sometimes when we're in the workspace, even though we're doing important work, we forget that we actually connect on a fun level, gamify it type of thing. So yeah.
So Jamie, we hear, and we talk about this internally here, that we're looking for people that are going to join our organisation having, you know, perhaps some different skills. They've got hopefully some commercial acumen and some ability to build relationships. With what's happened in the past 12 months, have you re-rated, or do you feel like you need to re-rate any of the skills of a potential employee, or perhaps someone who's looking for the next level up? I mean, how have those things changed, if at all?
Look, I think it has. I think digital literacy has absolutely been an essential element.
Yep.
Interesting, you know, I've now got my 65 or 75-year-old parents know how to use a smartphone and doing a COVID scan.
Yeah.
So there's all these skill sets that I think people have naturally gained as a result of this. But I think even if you look at, you know, there's a lot of talk about work of the future and a fourth industrial revolution and data literacy and data analytics and being able to have some sort of technical ability is becoming more and more crucial. But I think at the end of the day, I still think there's this human element that people need to really focus on. The behavioural skills are even more important because how people communicate online is actually very important, because it's sometimes the only snapshot you get. I think there's this level of integrity and honesty that we need in people. So it's a harder thing to measure at interview stage when you're recruiting people, but you're now potentially hiring a new person that you're not going to see face to face in a long time.
Which we did, yeah.
And you put them straight at home and expect them to work. So there's these behavioural elements that I think are even more important in this digital world, and I think that is going to be a stronger focus, even when it comes down to leadership skills. leading virtual teams becomes a different challenge. You've got to set the right boundaries, you've got to have the right level of communication, you need to have the right behaviours in how you communicate, you need to have an element of fun.
Yeah.
You need to think about how you engage them. I mean, we were talking to an organisation the other day that was running regular yoga and Pilates classes via Zoom. So, again, being creative in how you lead is important as well.
Well, I guess it's an extension of your own personal trademark, isn't it? How you conduct yourself, and you need to do a bit more of that online than perhaps
absolutely.
what you would have previously. And I guess that goes for anything, and whenever you're trying to get anywhere in a career, you've got a number of people that need to be in your corner. So having those, those online skills and the ability to get your point across in just as an effective manner is super important. That term, Meghan, resilience, and how we try and instill some resilience in our people. What have been the main lessons on the back of the pandemic that you think we've learned through building resilience?
I think the biggest lesson is if you can get involved in some kind of training about how to be resilient, then you should jump on it. I think that there's some really great offerings out there that make it really, we've been looking at a provider that has sort of this wheel of what are the things that you can do to tap into different things in your life to help you through difficult times. And I've done a number of training sessions before around resilience. It's always around this wheel, like what are these things that you do, and it's instinctive. You catch up with your friends, or for me it's exercise. If you there's ups and downs in life. When you're in the downs, what are the things that you do to come back up? And you have to accept that life is always going to have the ups and downs, and it's unrealistic to think that, hopefully unrealistic to think we'll have another pandemic or another year like we had last year, God help us. But I guess, through your career, you're going to have good times, you're going to have bad times, you're going to have some really horrible days. What are the set of things that you can do to tap into to help yourself feel better? So I guess my biggest advice there is, if you can do some training, whether it's through your company or even, LinkedIn Learning or something like that, it's good to sort of make that clear in your mind about how that works.
Yeah. And certainly for us, wellbeing has sort of jumped up the list because we're not as able to influence that in a one-to-one setting. You're relying more about being online, and the guys will hear a bit more about that in the coming months. But that's certainly something that we look at to try and build resilience, because things can't be perfect all the time. And the same goes with your career, and thinking about how you're gonna go about it and get to where you want to go. So I guess just on that point, this will be the last question from me before I throw to the audience. But promotions that people want, things that they want in their role, salary increases, whatever it is. Who'd like to jump in and give the group some advice on how best to approach that, rather than me nominating someone?
I'll go first. I did have a good think about this beforehand. I think that the first instinct would be that people think that the opportunities maybe are not available to them, maybe like they were 2 years ago. I guess my advice is don't stop having the conversations, but really sort of do your research about where your company is. I guess from a financial perspective, from a are they offering promotions? There's lots of industries where people have been making redundancies or have been cutting salaries. I guess it's about continuing the conversation with your direct manager about where am I in my career, how can I add value? I think that's probably the biggest thing, and it's always the biggest thing, is how can you demonstrate to your employer that you're worth moving up to that next position or getting that next salary bump. And I think probably we all have to just work that a little bit harder at the moment to earn promotions, salary reviews. I think as a generation we've had a few good years economically, and probably for most of your working lives you've kind of got a bump every year, and promotions have come easily, and maybe that's not the case anymore. But I don't think it's a matter of sort of giving up and not having the conversation, but don't ask for something that's completely unrealistic in the context of the company that you work for, is probably my biggest advice.
I think the other element to that is you have to take a level of personal accountability. And I've had conversations in the last week actually with various people, and there's a thought that because of COVID, I need some sort of reward back, or I've served another 12 months, or maybe I'm ready, closer to that promotion. But the individual I was talking to wasn't willing to do anything themselves. So I think having some personal accountability about what value do you add to the organisation, as Meghan said, but also what steps are you taking to develop yourself in the meantime, because organisations are in a tricky situation where, you know, their finances may have been challenged through COVID in some circumstances. They are potentially looking at the structure of the organisation, because it's actually seen that organisations can run a little flatter than what they used to in the past because of the workplace flexibility that we've now found. So because of that flatness that's happening in organisational structures, the promotional levels aren't always there. So you really need to show that you're adding value, and that means you've got to take some personal accountability about what you're adding to contribute to the value.
The only thing that I would add to that is also diversify your skill set. Make yourself so employable. You know, we may have another COVID, you never know. I mean, I think that they're going to be more and more frequent in the space coming. I don't think we haven't seen the last of this. That it will be a different type of COVID. So I think, you know, and I can best describe it in what happened to my daughter, who was in the arts, and she was on the stage and she was performing in Melbourne, and she overnight lost her contract playing in Shrek, and she had skills in retail, and she also had skills in hospitality and also in education. She was actually educator around autistic people. So you would think within that range of skills that you would actually be employable. And she was in Melbourne and they were in lockdown. So we're going to have different types of challenges that we're going to face throughout our careers. So the more skill set that you can bolster through education, through taking responsibility, I think then the more you'll be able to say, can I have that rise? Can I have that pay increase? Can I have that promotion? And go after what it is that your purposeful, meaningful work will be.
Some great answers there, thank you. I'm happy to throw open to the audience if anyone is brave enough to go first. Okay, anyone? Last call for any more questions. Okay. You must have covered everything absolutely completely. All right, no worries. Well, thank you very much to our panellists. They were fantastic as expected, and I'll now throw